years ago, I was pastoring up north, and I don't know how this guy came to me. I'm not sure how that all came about. He made his way to me somehow. He was really broken. His wife had left him for another man and was living with him, and he was just a wreck. And so I led him to the Lord, and that was really impacting for him. And he wanted to go to church. He didn't live near our church, and so he went to a nearby church, but came to my house practically every day during those early days to get encouragement, and I was discipling him. And I was believing for his wife to come back, not just to come back home, but to come back saved. And I was coaching him along this way. And he came to me, he says, my pastor, he doesn't believe like you. And I said, what do you mean? He says, just forget about her. He said, there's lots of girls, just take your pick. I said, no, we got to believe. We have to believe for your wife to come back. We want her to come back and be born again. I was teaching him how to stand by faith, regardless what his feelings were saying, regardless what circumstances were saying, regardless what his wife was saying. And I got him to believe, and I'm believing with him and for him. And wouldn't you know it, she called out of the blue, and she said, I've just met Jesus. I want to come home. And they're married to this day. I had a breakfast with them not too long ago, and God's just so blessed them. Well, this man, he'd gotten saved. I got him into the baptism of the Spirit. He got baptized in water. And he came to me and he says, God's been so good to me. I want to give. I want to start giving. And this was just initiated totally on his own. I had never mentioned this, or it was just something that was coming in. He says, tell me everything you know about tithing. And so I started teaching him about tithing and tithing. And so I taught him a bit about that. And so he was just deliriously happy and just wanted to give. And again, it's that influx of grace creates this outflow where you want to give. It's just what happens. And he was over the moon. His wife was back, and he was starting an adoption process for some kids. And he came to my house one day, and he was completely bummed out, really low, one of the lowest I've seen him in a long time. And I said, what happened? He says, I can't quite figure it all out. I started tithing. And I said, yeah. He said, well, my pastor came to me on Sunday, and he cornered me, and he said, God told me to tell you that you need to start tithing. He said, but God knows I'm tithing. Why would God tell him that? And he was just chest falling. And I said, well, what'd you say? He says, well, I told him I do tithe. I've been tithing. He had a great job, a very high-end job that just made a lot of money. And the pastor knew that. And so he said, I have been tithing. The pastor says, no, you haven't. He said, I keep the books. I know who gives and who doesn't. And you're not showing up as there's no checks, there's nothing. He said, Pastor, he said, I wanted to give. He said, I've been more than tithing. He said, but I didn't want anyone to know. He says, I've just been given cash. But he came to me, and he was so broken with that manipulation. And it was such an offense to him that he stopped giving. And then he stopped growing. Then he stopped attending. And like I said, I had breakfast with him not too long ago and got permission to put this story in the book. And I said, have you ever given at that level before? He says, no. So, no, that just was such a kick in the gut for me. He says, I lost. I've never been able to get back to that level before. And I thought, isn't that the work of the enemy? I mean, this guy's on fire. He's growing. And the enemy sits back and says, okay, now how can I crimp that pipe? How can I stop the flow of grace? How can I get that to happen? What kind of offense can we lay in this man's, in the trail that he's walking on. The fence is a trap. It's a way of, years ago, that they would get a deer or some kind of animal to be entrapped along a trail. They would set it in a fence. And the enemy's always thinking about this. He's saying, let's stop the grace of God from flowing. Let's offend them with the issue of money. And for some people, it's a TV preacher or someone who's covetous or someone who's carnal or a friend who keeps asking for stuff. It's something, and it makes you mad. It offends your sensibilities. And so you decide you're not going to do this. You're not going to participate in this. And next thing you know, the pipe gets crimped. And then you wonder why you can't hear from the Lord, you can't feel his presence. Your other relationships are affected because it stops the grace from flowing. And it's a strategy of the enemy. And he knows that giving, all kinds of giving, including forgiving. Forgiving is extending grace. Forgiving is no different than giving money or giving time. Forgiveness is you extending grace to people, just like God extended grace to us. And if he can stop that, it essentially stops the grace of God from flowing in our lives. So I was in a Christian bookstore one time, and I picked up a book, and I snorted when I laughed when I saw the cover, because it says, the cover of the book, a little flimsy book, and it said, "The Key to Everything." And I laughed. This little book contains the key to everything. And then I looked at the name of the author, and it's a guy named Jack Hayford, someone that I really respect. And so he's written the book called The Key to Everything. And so I got it and took it home. And it's all about, the premise of the book is all about giving, whether it's forgiving or giving patience, being tolerant towards people who are acting up in our lives. And he called it the key to everything, and it really got me thinking about it. Could it be that giving really is the key to everything? The key to the flow of the inflow that we want and the outflow that we want to see in our lives? What if the issue of money is a form of grace? And if the enemy can shut that down, it's a funny thing. I don't keep the books. I have no idea who gives and who doesn't. I don't keep track of that. But every now and again, I'll ask our treasurer, I'll say, is so-and-so giving at the level, has there been any change in their giving pattern? Because I have found that giving, all kinds of giving, even attendance, where people are coming to relate and give fellowship to each other, is a barometer. It's a way to measure. It's a way to measure a lot of stuff. It's a way it's a thermometer to take our health, take our pulse. It's a way of measuring. And Jesus used giving that way many different times. He talked about how we relate to mammon. And that tells them a lot about how we relate to God and how we relate in terms of priorities. So Jesus really goes down that line quite a bit. And I think we'll take some time with that today. But he wants to keep that giving flowing. It's the key to everything. And the enemy wants to shut it down in our lives. And if he can do it, cause you to say, I'm not going to extend any more grace. I'm going to keep that grace to myself. It's kind of like this. Jesus said, if you keep your life, you'll lose it. If you lose your life for my sake, you'll keep it. Now, let's just change that a little bit, because that doesn't always mean anything to anyone, but let's just change it. If we change it, it says, if you extend whatever you have to others, you'll get more life. But if you shut it down, you'll actually lose the very life that you're looking for. It'll shut it off. I think there's something to that.